standards of a console
Yeah,
that's
for the most
still
part.
relevant right now.
Yeah, I mean they did manage to get the console version to look pretty close to the original. They've done some amazing things on the consoles. They do not feel like 8-year-old systems right now. They feel like the previous generations did after like 3 years. I
It's
mean,
a
it
strange
takes.
thing. I mean, dealing with the hardware we have, I feel like there's so much more room for advancement. I think that one thing you can say, like maybe the gaps won't be as large, but I think optimization allows systems to get so much better over time as people learn how to develop for them better, more so than systems in the 90s or in the, even especially in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, there's been like the famous programmer John Carmack, I think, was saying that there's practically infinite potential. And then you got on the other end of the spectrum the Crytek CEO, Javette Yurley, who basically said that Crysis 3 takes every ounce of the console's power. And I believe it, but it took a really long time to do. And next generation is going to be.
Yeah, but I mean, I think me and Brian talked about this on a previous episode before you had entered the show. I mean, that's what they said about Crisis 2. That's what they said about Crisis when it became a downloadable title. Yes, it takes every ounce, but at the same time, developers are consistently learning how to squeeze the most out of how to compress, how to make the most efficient build of a game.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
you
yeah,
can't look at the 360 PS3 and say there's a lot of power left in there. I mean, we're pretty much I think at the point where we can conclusively say there's not a whole lot more you can do with these systems.
you think so?
I honestly do. I think we're finally getting to the point where the games are starting to look very similar. They've incorporated features I never thought I would find in these consoles, like God rays and ambient occlusion and things like that, or just like that used to be cutting edge features that you needed high end graphics cards to do, and they managed to code them in efficient ways to make them work on these aging consoles. It's
Right.
fascinating to me, and you know I honestly think um, the the next generation consoles that's probably going to take even longer to exploit all that power. But you know, at a certain point, you start to get to where you're not really getting more performance. You're just figuring out ways to make games just kind of look better. Like instead of using a
Hmm.
calculation to create a shadow, you just kind of fake a shadow and things like that. They just kind of get the general image quality, just sort of in some ways, sort of in a smoke and mirrors way, look really good, look better than previous generations. I mean, the previous titles on that generation. So it's you know at this point we're kind of just like faking stuff a little bit, and in terms of raw performance, especially a lot of times when you look at these early console generation games, when you're not seeing all the performance exploited, and this was the case with the Wii U early on, games should not look worse than the 360 or PS3 on the Wii U, and there was a few that did, and the reason was for that was the tools, which just were not very mature for launch.
Yeah.
But at this point, you know, the 360 PS3, you pretty much there's so much documentation. You know, 7 years of working on these consoles. There's a lot of information and knowledge, and these developers have been at it for a while.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot to be said with not necessarily the beef of the actual hardware, but how much people learn how to use the hardware and just make it as efficient as possible. The stuff that we see right now with the PlayStation 4 is going to be way surpassed in the next like 5 years on the same hardware.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Especially since the stuff that we're seeing on the PS4 wasn't even like final specs. So like even just going from what they demoed to the launch game should be an improvement visually.
All right, guys. Well, let's move on here. Just a couple games. I've been playing Crisis 3 some more. I kind of told you guys what I thought about it last week. I just kind of it's a beautiful game. It's an absolutely beautiful game, but it feels like it's a fucking chore to play. I feel like I'm just kind of like going through the motions. Once you get past like the actual units, the actual aliens just are just it's not fun. They kind of switch the power dynamic where you're no longer the badass and you're kind of being hunted, and not in a good way. It could be in a good way, but it just doesn't work that way. So I haven't really got that much further in that game. If I do, I will do a review for it, but I just don't see it likely.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, your enjoyment of the game might be better on a console because you're playing it on the PC and you're an elitist. You just your standards are too high.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. The whole time I'm like, I think I'm too good for this game. So that's what a lot of what it is. Moving on, I did have a fucking fantastic experience with Star Wars Pinball.
Really, you like Star Wars, huh? I couldn't tell.
A little bit. I like it a little bit, but even besides that, have you guys played the Zen Pinball stuff
I
so far?
played like some of the like free demo tables. They let you download. You know, obviously the game they want to say it's free to play, but really you're just kind of downloading a platform.
Exactly, yeah, and then with extensive limitations.
Very, very limited. In terms of ball physics, I felt like the ball felt much lighter
Yeah.
than Pinball Arcade. Which
Yeah,
is the
and
game I'm
given
used to.
Pinball Arcade is, in my opinion, a much better platform as far as like the actual natural feel. But I am a fan of like the arcadey style, excuse me, that Zen Pinball does, and this is by far some of their best tables to date.
I just don't understand why Darth Vader would be standing on a pinball table shrunken. It just breaks the immersion.
Why would Darth Vader need to explain himself to you?
Oh, well, it got me there.
But no, the tables are fucking great. They really like squeeze everything they can out of those things, and just like every part of that table is entertaining. And it's like $2 a board on iTunes. The only board that is worth fucking jack shit is the Boba Fett table. I've kind of went into it in my review why it is
I thought you liked the Empire Strikes Back one.
I like the Empire Strikes Back one. I like the Clone Wars one a lot, but the Boba Fett one in particular isn't that great. I don't know. See, can you see that thing right there? I'm serious about this stuff.
You are very serious.
The Boba Fett table was crap, but definitely worth the download. Let's move on. Let's get into our topic of the week. This is a first for 1985 FM. Everyone has played this game to some extent, and we are going to get into it.
Most of them before us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We didn't. We held out. We didn't play the console release, which most review copies went out last week. We were waiting for the PC port here, and looks like it was worth the wait because the PC port is fantastic. It was done by Nixus Software, and if you're familiar with them, they did Legacy of Kain early on, and they've done a lot of ports back then, and they really do a good job of optimizing games. What are your guys' impressions so far of Tomb Raider?
Well,
And how far have you actually got into it?
I played over an hour of the game, and so far I'm kind of surprised at how much you just... It's not one of those games, I'm surprised, where you take on the character as like a second skin and really get into their shoes and feel like it's you in there to some degree. I mean, I'm not saying I role play every game that I play, but it felt like I was helping a character rather than actually being the character, if that makes sense.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I'm interested. No, the only reason I'm interested in this is because this was like a big thing with SquareSoft early on, that they were saying that their philosophy was, and we'll get into this more in the after show, that they wanted you to have the feeling that you were trying to protect Lord. You think that's an honest...
That absolutely is true for me. Even though, like, this early on, I had a moment in the game, I shocked myself. I was just like jumping to a platform, and Lara.
Lara. Why don't they
Lara
just call
Croft.
her Laura?
Damn it, I'm gonna get to my point one of these days. She jumps a platform and then grabs a bar midair, swings on it, and lands on the other side. And I'm like, oh, bravo! So, wow, that was good. I'm like, did I really react like that? Did I just root for this character? Like actually like impressed? Like, yeah, look at you. You're like,
Right. Huh.
because you know they do such a good job of like the characterization. She's so rooted in reality. Like she obviously she's very scared. She her nerves are shot the whole time, but she's just kind of rolling with the punches. Like she's young, naive, but she's not weak, and she has some training and stuff. So you're just kind of like you totally get into like her like just learning this stuff and evolving and taking on this like insurmountable obstacle of trying to find get rescued in this game. And it just kind of surprised me that I was like I really was just like rooting for this character. Like I was a little bit taken aback by the fact that she supposedly never had to use a gun really before, and then as soon as I hit the R button, she like reloads one-handed in like
Yeah,
one second.
right.
I'm like, okay. Then maybe she was a Marine in the
She's a
past
quick
life.
learner. Quick learner.
Yeah, she really is.
Checking out the video, like the video we just saw, like one of the great things about this game, I mean, aside from like the actual character development, is there is so many scenes just like this. Like they do such a good job of bringing you that quintessential like Tomb Raider. Like this is a low shot of her looking on the backdrop of her next adventure kind
Yeah.
of thing. They do that so much in this game, and it's always like beautiful. I don't want to like go on too much, Brian. What do you think so far from what you have played?
Well, I did get to play a little bit. I streamed what I did play last night, so it wasn't much. It was only about half an hour. It feels it's Uncharted, but Uncharted was Tomb Raider, so Tomb Raider is Tomb Raider. That's how I've been putting it to people. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
at this point, Tomb Raider took so much from Uncharted, but Uncharted takes so much from Tomb Raider. It kind of evens itself out.
right, exactly. So I like it. I've liked the Uncharted games. I've liked the Tomb Raider games, and this kind of blends them into what should be a Tomb Raider game. I I really haven't had gone too much time to play with it outside of what I had already played at the demo at Comic Con and stuff, and they just do a really good job of bringing out that extra human emotion in Lara.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Lara.
I will say that what the stuff that we played at Comic Con, honestly, I didn't really like feel much of a connection to the game. I thought it was, I saw
Was
what they were
that like
doing.
the
I felt it
beginning
was,
of the game?
it's very much toward the beginning. If you remember, there's a sequence early on after you get out of the initial
Spoiler
It's
alert.
like,
right
cave.
after she, starts hyperventilating and
The first part where you start like crawling up that the plane that's
Yeah.
left like vertical.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And you have to that's towards the kind of the area it was, and I didn't much really care for it, and I really didn't much in this part
Well,
in actual
for-
final build. But I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
Well, for me, it was kind of like this thing where I didn't have the attachment to her yet, and I still don't, just because I'm still in that part. But I know that, I can already tell that
It sneaks up on
going
you.
on. Yeah, it's going to.
It's like, well, when you play it, like I don't know if you're going to be like self-conscious about it since I mentioned it now and maybe have that mental block, but if you're not really like paying attention, you're just like playing a game, but like before you know it, it's like all of a sudden you're like just like really like just rooting for this character. I don't know any other way to phrase it. I feel like I said that five
Yeah,
times
it's
already.
strange, like because me and Tracy were talking about this, and this is one of the things she was focusing on. Do you feel this kind of like need? Do you feel as if you're playing for the character rather than playing the character? And I didn't feel that. So for you saying that, it surprised me, because I thought that was totally off base. It's a strange thing.
I don't know. Maybe,
But
maybe there's some self-conscious, like, sexual root in it. I mean, I'd like to think I'm not. I mean, it may be kind of funny, but I'm kind of serious. Like I wonder
No,
how much of it is like a psychological thing.